Greetings, this is Tarot Illumination. It's Wednesday, 21st of June here. Something occurred to me yesterday. It's been bugging me for a very, very long time. And I had this little moment of clarity, and I just wanted to share it with you. I hope it makes sense. I can't validate or prove any of it. I'm just offering my opinion. It's about the astrology of the United States and how things are the way they are. So I'm going to just pop over to the stage for a moment just to illustrate things, then I'll come back here. I think that's how it's going to work anyway. We'll see. So just bear with me. All right, so this is one of my Astro doodles. Probably seen these before. So let's put this aside here. Let's say this is like a very crude sketch Astro doodle of the United States with a couple of things highlighted that are very significant to me as an amateur astrologer. But today I want to point out this aspect here. This is Pluto, the planet Pluto, 27 degrees Capricorn retrograde for the United States birth chart in the second house here. Over here is Mercury, about 27 degrees, also retrograde in the 8th house of other people's money. So this axis of money is extremely significant for the United States because a lot of people associate the United States with money or big money or the American empire or the United States dollar, for better or worse. The people who benefit, in other words, what we've talked about many times, the folks at the very, very top of the pyramids of power and money and control, for example, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, the IMF Bank, the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, all the other world central banks, and so on and so on. BlackRock, Vanguard, all these global asset managers with trillions, tens of trillions of dollars of money inside their control, inside their coffers. In my perspective, that correlates to the expression, healthy or unhealthy, of Capricorn energy. In other words, big business, organization, management, control, growth, ambition, achievement, success, grow. And it's very, very prominently marked here in the United States. So you could correlate that with what we see in the United States. The United States is really the origin of globalized multinational conglomerates that operate like massive organisms that gobble up everything and anything that they can for their advantage and for the ultimate advantage of the, let's say, the owners, the oligarchs, the elites at the very, very top of that particular entity. Let's just call it the elites, okay? And that has two ways of expressing. One is very healthy in that there are some incredible efficiencies of management and everything to do with business when you consolidate and you grow and you capitalize and you focus on big business, more and more profit, more and more, let's say, ownership, control. And that's great. The other side of it, the unhealthy side, is, of course, the very, very sick obsession with those things, especially power, money, and control, when it gets out of hand and then the end goal, the whole mission, the meaning and purpose becomes very perverted. And it's just literally all about having power, money, and control, regardless of the consequence. It's a very Pluto type energy. It's either very healthy or very unhealthy, very extreme, black or white. And it's always happening simultaneously. But sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it seems amazing, like, ooh, Microsoft, it started from a few guys in an office. Google started from Sergey Brin and what's those, Larry Page in a garage in San Francisco, and so on and so on. And kind of goes from there. Tesla cars started from a quirky fellow born in South Africa, and so on and so on. Now, this is in the second house of money. So wherever you put Pluto, it's either very big, for better or worse, very big bad, very big good. So we're talking about big money, like the money and the energy of empires. Okay, so you can talk about the American empire, and there's a reason why the American empire is so significant in modern history, because this is the embodiment of the energy of empires. In other words, money, control, and power done through globalized multinational corporations, where at the very ultimate, it's just about profit, money, control, and power. Think of BlackRock, think of Vanguard, think of the United States Federal Reserve banking system, the United States Treasury, United States Federal Government Administration. They're all consolidated like one massive fascist power grab. And we're seeing the very, very, very worst of that behavior today, right now. This period in history, we earmarked this several years ago with my little book. I just want to point that out again, where we identified January 2020 as the point of critical mass where the fractures actually occurred on a global scale, where this energy here was exposed in the worst of its behavior. In other words, going back to that point in time, that's when the big bad bug arrived, and it spread all over the news, and eventually it turned into what we call the lockdowns in early March 2020. I see all of that as a symptom of the most sick and perverse expression of these energies, where you have medical, global, industrial complex elites basically taking over the control of everything. And it turns what theoretically could be really wholesome and wonderful, turns it into something very sick. Literally like a cancerous tumor that became metastatic and went to full stage 4 terminal across the whole of planet Earth. And that's what I believe we're seeing today. Thank you, America. Well, America isn't all to blame, because so many other countries and central banks copycat the American system because they have to in order to survive inside of a system that is, let's say, dominated by the United States dollar. Remember the house of money here, but it's retrograde, so it's flawed, and we are seeing perpetually what the flaws are. And it's since the very beginning of American history, from 1776 onward, it became very, very obvious that business is a very strong characteristic of the United States. Money, money, money. Going way back, gold, silver, the gold rush, mining, and then the oil and the black gold of oil and gas, and so on and so on. And then massive explosions in technology and so-called advancements, TVs, radios, air conditioning, telephone, cars, planes, jets, rockets, internet, mobile phones, cryptocurrencies up to present day, and so on. So we've seen the absolute splendid wonders of this kind of multinational type of corporate global capitalism energy, but we've also seen the shadow side. So when you take Pluto at this extent, it's very self-serving in terms of, if you think of, sad to say, Capricorn energy at its worst. In other words, it just becomes more and more obsessed with power, money, and control. Take that to an extreme and put it in retrograde, and you can see that it's constantly being tested for what is not working. And it's very interesting to me that we have this, because the testing comes from here. Little tiny Mercury in Cancer retrograde. So it might seem like very weak energy. Um, you know, Mercury would probably be happier in, Gemini or Libra or, I don't know, Sagittarius or something, or Aquarius, something aligned with its airy nature. Anyway, so over here, let's forget about this for now. Go over here. Mercury in Cancer retrograde. I kept thinking about that. Okay. So we have a lot of planets in Cancer. We have Sun, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury. That's a lot of power, energy lined up over here in the 8th house. And if you look at it as Cancerian energy, it's all about the business and the home of the family, the nuclear home, the nuclear family, and the bounty and wonder and good fortune of the family, the home and the love of the family, and the commerce of the family. And so in early American history, from what I understand, it was very, very much about expansion of the nuclear family and this Cancerian energy across the United States, where the settlers and the pioneers and the founders went all over the United States and turned everything into this very Cancerian energy about home, family, commerce, day-to-day commerce, self-contained commerce between homes and families. Let's expand that a little bit. Talk about communities. Expand that to a little bit more. Talk about small towns. Talk about all the thousands of small towns that grew up all across America with very little emphasis on the big cities. Way back, it was basically, I think, Philadelphia, Washington, a little bit in New York, a little bit in Boston, a little bit in Chicago, tiny bits in LA and San Francisco and Seattle, but those were early days. Pretty much everything else was thousands and thousands of small towns, farms, communities all across the United States, because they didn't have the telegraph back in the early days. They didn't have all the cars and the trains, the transportation, the telecommunications, and everything. Everything was very, very localized. So think of all that energy here, localized, the very early days in the birth of America. Small family farms, small communities, highly, highly independent, highly interconnected with each other on the family basis, on the home, the family, the farm, the homestead. And if you think of today's modern, what do you call them, farmers markets, those would have been absolutely fundamental to the health and the vibrancy and the life of the community in the small towns all across America. And I feel that that is kind of built into the DNA of the United States, just like this is built into the DNA of the United States. I believe that this is the solar expression. In other words, what you would see from the outside if you could see these phenomena externally. You would see all these classic characteristics of American culture, of America itself, as expressed what we have here today. We have a highly agrarian economy, even though most people now live in big cities. Everything is deeply interconnected. It's interesting because this thing that we call the United States really doesn't need anything or anyone else outside the United States. So if we wanted to, we could become a very nationalistic type of enterprise. And that's how they wanted it back then, because the folks that the founders over here, they didn't want anything to do with these tyrants and oligarchs and maniacs over here, and these all the religious, financial, and political persecution. They wanted freedom. They wanted to basically operate like free market capitalism with no, let's say, external, obvious, maniacal, controlling, obsessive, power mad, greedy, tyrannical government leaders trying to bleed us all of our sovereign wealth. Okay? because that's how things operated under the British monarchy at the time. So instead, we ended up with this thing that we call America, where everyone was very, very independent, and you had to be in order to survive. And if there was a problem, you looked after it in your local community. You go to your local church, your friends, your family, your neighbors, your local doctors, your local farmers, your local growers, and everything was done very, very independently. A lot of the power and ownership of your life was sovereign, and it was contained in your home and family and community. And everybody survived within probably a 100-mile radius of where they were born. And a lot of it was agricultural. Oh, you need corn? Well, I got strawberries. So you want to swap? Okay, you got a bunch of lamb. Well, I could swap that for some ham, and so on. So you have very active farming type agricultural communities that support each other. Okay, and so if I go over here, tune into the Mercury in Cancer energy, that would to me represent the energy of commerce between the homes and the families, the homesteaders, the founders, the pioneers, using real wealth as measured by goods and services and sound money like gold and silver, because that's how the United States operated. And there was tremendous independence. We had the Constitution and we had the Declaration of Independence, and everybody had the right to be who you are. If you wanted to be an insane lunatic and have very extreme, weird views, you could do that. But you have to live with the consequences and accept the responsibilities. If you wanted to, you could live and conduct a life of home, family, success, safety, and comfort in these small towns that basically had everything. They had everything that they needed, and they all looked after each other. And it didn't matter what happened 500 miles away in the next state, or 5,000 miles away in Europe or Eastern Asia. We had everything here. So I believe in the early days of the United States, the first 60 to 120 years of the American phenomenon, we had that. However, deep in the background, this thing is growing because it's just as alive as this. And this energy is highly contradictory to this energy. They are essentially at war with each other. They're in an extreme opposition. When it involves Pluto, it's always extreme. So it's terms of opposition of money and power, an exchange of money and power. Mercury in Cancer, with all this extra energy here, is the enemy of the elites over here who want absolute power, money, control just for themselves at the expense of we the people over here. So over here in the 8th house of other people's money, my feeling is that we the people were very vulnerable and very ripe for the picking by the small number of elites who figured out that they could enrich themselves by pillaging and plundering the common person. Translation to modern America, that would be the equivalent of, a big agricultural conglomerate buying up all the land, buying up all the small farms, deliberately destroying the possibility for commerce at the small local level in order that they can expand and turn into industrial farming for wheat, corn, soy, oranges, avocados, tomatoes, lettuce, cows, pigs, chickens, seafood, goats, turkeys, Christmas trees, whatever it is. It turns into this massive corporate conglomerate. And once they have that energy and that power, and the small farms and the small communities have been stripped of their valuables, it's very, very hard to reclaim that and regain that. But I believe in America, people are waking up and they're realizing, like, wow, how did we let that happen? Essentially, it's like rape and pillage in slow motion, and conditioning, brainwashing, and bribery and corruption. There were probably many, many, many examples of small farmers being offered what appeared to be a lot of money from a growing conglomerate to give up your farm. Just give up. just give up. You might as well give up because that's the way America's going. And we'll give you a bunch of money and then you can go live in an apartment in the city. Get yourself a little, a little suburban ranch house somewhere over in suburbs of Chicago or, Los Angeles or something. Just give up the farm. We want your land. We want your animals, all of that stuff. So bringing that up to today, to present day America, the reason I'm talking about this right now is because it really hit me yesterday, because we were transiting with the moon in Cancer right here. Right now, today, the moon is over in Leo, uh, which is touching on the North Node of America. Perhaps that's why I'm speaking out here. I have very significant Leo aspects, and they are highly polarized with Aquarius aspects. So this aspect here for America, the nodal axis, especially the Leo North Node, resonates very, very powerfully inside of me. And I think it's my feeling, my intuition that has told me to speak up in a brave, courageous way to say that certain things are not acceptable. With the retrograde here, the retrogrades here, it's like they're permanently at odds with each other, because the temptation to get rich, imagine you're a small farmer struggling every day, but you have a rich family life, rich community, very independent, and then suddenly somebody offers you a pile of money and you think, you know what, I'm exhausted of taking care of cows and pigs all day and having to farm during the winter and the summer. I'm sick of it. Sure, I'll take your money. You get it? See what I'm talking about? Anyway, I wanted to point that out because yesterday and a couple of days before, the moon was transiting Cancer right here. And I was becoming hypersensitive to some things, energies that I didn't really understand until I looked at one of my astroduals and I thought, oh my God, this happens every 28 days. We get a 2.5 day transit of the moon through Cancer. But this one really, really triggered me when it landed right here and right here. And I'm looking at what's happening in the United States right now today. What's happening here is affecting everything else over here. I just wanted to point that out. So let me go back, hang out with you guys again over here, and then I'll wrap it up for the day for now. Does that make sense to any of you? In terms of the astrology, it was like a serious wake up for me. I kept thinking, oh my God, it's so freaking obvious, and I can see it played out in the astrology. You know how I like to blame the astrology for everything, good, bad, whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. It's just my opinion as a constantly aspiring astrologer. I hope that helps you understand. So when you see that polarity going on with Pluto, it's a very extreme polarity. It's very, very hard to fight that energy of Pluto because it's so powerful. It's very hard to resist. And there are small handfuls of people, basically what I would call the elites, who figured out how that energy field works. They've tapped into it, they have fueled it, and they have exploited it to the max. And now they are trying to take it to the max even further on a global scale. China has understood the model from America, and China's trying to copycat. It will fail. Europe has tried to copycat, but it will fail as well because it doesn't have the raw, natural, fundamental DNA genetics of their astrology that we have in the United States. All they can do is mimic. Okay, so that's what they do. And they do that partly because they have to survive. So I just wanted to share this because I don't see it as something that's ever going to be fully resolved. It's a permanent polarity. So you're born with it. So there's always going to be this push and pull between, in the United States, between Mercury in Cancer retrograde, directly opposed to Pluto in Capricorn retrograde. They're always, as soon as all the energy leans this way in favor of Mercury, we get to see all the flaws and horrors of the Pluto energy retrograde. And what's wrong? Oh, how can we fix that? Oh, well, Ooh, the tide swings when we have large planetary aspects that light up the Cancer or the Capricorn thing. So we look at the Mercury aspect. Well, how did it come to be where all these so-called, let's say, initial characteristics of the United States that were so cherished and so much blood was shed to get that stuff? How did we lose all that? So we're figuring it all out as we go along. So the show is not over. United States is literally just going through. If you look at it in like a, what do they call it? Time delay. You know, if you could follow the astrology over hundreds of years, you would see this kind of action going on between Pluto and Mercury. Pluto and Mercury in the United States. And where are we now? And each accent over here or here would be lit up by certain transits at that time, heavily amplifying the Capricorn or the Cancer energy, either way at the 27-degree mark. Those are the critical points for the United States, and that affects the whole world. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you because we are now in Pluto retrograde at the 29-degree mark. So it's very, very close to the American 27-degree mark. So for the rest of this year and early into next year and into 2024, we're going to be dealing with this dynamic where I feel it's heavily, heavily on the side of Pluto and Capricorn energy. And we are witnessing everything that is wrong and unhealthy about the expressions of Pluto retrograde 27 degrees Capricorn, second house energy, birth DNA of the United States. You got to reveal it to heal it. Once we understand that better, we have a better chance of going back to what I see is a more natural and healthy way of being. Even though the United States is born with both those inside of it, there is a balance point, but I think it's where the United States is heavily out of balance right now, and it needs to reconstitute. So that's why I like to talk about reconstituting the Constitution. I would like to see a lot more of the 8th house energy with Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, and what was the other one? Venus in Cancer in a healthy expression where, for example, we the people put a lid on the elites. We find a way to stomp and crush some of their energy because their energy, that energy has become effectively like stage 4 metastatic cancerous tumor across the whole of the United States. The United States is very, very sick right now. We're not dead by any means, but we're very, very sick. And we have incredible resilience in this country. So I feel that we have the ability to rejuvenate, revive, reconstitute ourselves. Okay? Take care, everybody. I hope you get something out of it. Actually, I should say, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that stuff. I keep forgetting to promote my own stuff. Thank you very much. Bye.